last year or so that you've been involved in the Achievers Club and how your life and your business have evolved.
Mhm.
And I know you've done some thinking about this in advance, so let's just go ahead and jump in. So I want to hear, let's just start off by talking about where were you
Mhm.
when you had joined the Achievers Club, right? So like what was going on in your mind? Like what things were you struggling with at that time?
Yeah. So I was working full time in a nonprofit organization. Loved the mission, loved the work that I was doing on a day-to-day basis, but was really struggling with time management. And the reason for that is I had this habit of just like always giving my all whenever I was working and having to go home and finish up things because the work day never ended for me. So I was never like putting together a list of things like, oh, I was like, this is my list of things, but I've learned through the Daily Success Program that my list was never realistic. It was just like all these things. And there was no plan like, oh, this happens on Monday, this happens on Tuesday, just like all these things that I had to do. And so I went home feeling as though I was failing every single day because I didn't get that very unrealistic list done. And so when I joined Daily Success, it really was what I thought was time management. So I need to get better at managing my time. So I'm getting tasks done more quickly so that I don't feel as though I have to overwork in order to just like accomplish something. And even as I'm talking about that, I'm realizing that I was very unrealistic with my expectations. So my managers thought I was doing great, but being a perfectionist and being a high performer, I was always looking to just like reach something that nobody else, no other person had that expectation of me. Um, on the side of my full-time job, I also had what I realized now was really just a passion project. So I had been a coach for like 4 years before starting my full-time job. And I really went into coaching because I had been working in the advertising industry before and just saw that people were miserable in their jobs. And I thought I had this brilliant insight that of course you can be happy and still work. Like I actually thought that this was a thing that I needed to solve because I had never experienced having a job or people having a job and also being happy. So I was like on the journey to solve this thing. And so I began my coaching on the side because I realized that I just like love talking to women and sharing like stress relief techniques or just like things that they could incorporate in their lives to be happy. And I continued doing that on the side. So working with like one client here and there, or like leading a workshop like once a year or like twice a year. But the business was never sustainable in the sense that I had to keep my full-time job in order to host a workshop. And I wasn't even charging prices that I could make money off of. It's like, all right, I'm inspired to do this thing. Let me do this thing. So all of that was happening in the background. And when I joined this organization, because the work felt like 90% in alignment with what I believed and what I wanted to do, I just paused my coaching because so much of that work involved coaching. So I thought, oh, like I'm fulfilled in this area now. So I wasn't looking to build my business. I was really looking to get better at my job.
Mm.
But through going through the program, there are all these women who had side stuff. And I was like, oh, I can also have a side thing. Well, I guess I have a side thing. And so I began, along with like my goals of like just doing well at my job and like launching this, big new program that was an organizational priority. I began like adding these little goals on, making a bit of money from my side business or developing some virtual course because I knew that I wouldn't have the time that I needed to dedicate to it, but I also wanted to serve a very specific population that I cared about. And so creating content around that to connect with that population. So that's what brought me to Daily Success. But I feel like going through that experience, I didn't know what I was signing up for, basically,
Yeah.
but I'm glad that I did. I
Had
got more
no
than I
idea
wanted.
what you were getting into.
No idea. I was like, Gemma is going to teach me how to stay organized
Yeah.
and get to inbox zero.
Right.
Nah.
No, yeah, right. No. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you started having that shift, right, of going from like putting your coaching business down and feeling like, okay, work has to be the priority, to then shifting of like, wait a minute, like there's a place for both of these things to coexist. Like what happened inside of you? Like what were the insights that came about that made you feel okay to do that?
Yeah. Well, I was realizing that my job could only take me this far.
Mm.
Um, Something that I remember telling, so in my previous job, I was working with like participants in this program, and something that I remember telling them as I was coaching them is that humans are so dynamic. There's no job that can completely fulfill us because we always have some dream. There's always some evolution that's taking place.
Yes.
And if your company does this, you're going to outgrow that, or your interests are going to shift at some point. And so I was getting to that point where the 90% fulfillment became 80 and then became 70. And so again, I was seeking outside of my job the thing that could help me to express more of who I was. Um, so having gone through the experience of losing a pregnancy and then an infant, like I had to work with that population. It was so important to me, and that wasn't the audience that I was working with. And so the shift was feeling that desire to serve that population and not being able to do it in my full-time job, but also seeing through the daily success that it was possible. You know, there were women who had their passions. They still had some job that was providing for their needs, but they were creating something else into the world. And I wanted to be able to do that.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Okay, I love that. Um, so what were some of the first steps that you took to begin to make that shift? So at this point, you know, you're in the program, you're like, wait a minute, I think I remember you like saying like, I think I wanna go ahead and like, you know, start this business. And so
Yeah.
what were some of the initial things you did to sort of get things going?
Yeah. I don't feel like I wasn't fully committed to it in the sense that the seed was there, or the idea, but I wasn't really executing on it. So the first step was like starting to add things on my Trello board or on my to-do list relating to coaching. But even as I added those things, I was still prioritizing my full-time job and still taking action on the stuff that were on the list of my full-time job. But the daily success program is about accountability. So there would be this like shame each time I came back on the call and realized that I didn't do something. Um, so eventually I started taking small actions. I know I'm trying to remember what those actions were, but I remember like each step led to the other. So as I'm further along now, you know, initial steps were coming up with, you know, like what's a number that I would want to be making?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's that number? Whether it is as a side hustle or as a full-time job, like what's that number that I want to reach for? And then if that's the number, how much work do I need to be doing? And then if that's how much work do I need to be doing, like what are the processes to like reach people and connect with people, and what's my offer and what's the message? So even though I was taking very slow, minute steps, I was always being channeled into the next step because of being in the program.
Yeah. So one of the things that comes to mind for me is like your pricing when you worked on sort of like the whole, you know, pricing period. And we were talking about like what your numbers could be.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. I remember
Oh,
you
Lord.
were like, what?
I don't remember exactly what my price was, but as you said that, what I'm going back to is during the retreat when you were leading the session, it was probably the same session, but it had to do with money. And I just felt myself sink into the chair. I felt myself sweating, and I literally wanted to run out of the room because of the conflict that I had with money. Like, I was getting sick. Like, my body was going through all these things because of what was happening in my mental space.
Yeah.
But sitting there, because like, how could I just walk out of the room? So sitting there and going through that, I realized, wait, this is my number. That's like 6 people. That's like all I need.
That's all you need, right?
If I talk to X number of people and I sign on 6, that's all I need to hit that number. Why was I losing my mind all along? And it just became so much simpler. Like this amount of dollars in like the thousands. I was like, how would I ever get that? Like it took months of my full-time job to get that.
Yeah, right. And that you could
Yeah.
be able to bring that in for yourself with
Yeah.
6 clients, right? That's
Yeah.
a huge mindset shift.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what were some of the other, your biggest insights or wins so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the program has led me through a lot of like mindset work. I think the greatest gift has been like having to go through the work, meaning like this is a thing that we talked about in the accountability call. So this is a thing that you should do during the week. Having to even face that kind of just like put me face to face with all of these things that were happening in the background, which I didn't have to deal with when I had the comfort of a full-time job.
Mm.
So money was definitely a big one. Stuff came up about, money, and then being worried about how my relationships would be affected because of money. And that's because of what I observed in the relationship with my parents. And like holding that as an adult
Yeah.
right now, that's like years of holding that idea. The other one is that I have to work really hard to prove my worth.
Mm.
And as I reflected on that, it's almost like the work never stopped because I just had to show that I was worthy of being there and worthy of having that job. What else was there? Some money blocks. The other one that was big was that I had control over my time. So there was no separation between like work and like my time. Like even now my mind is like, yeah, that's actually a thing. And it was during a call with you. I remember it was during the holidays and my arm was like tingly and just in pain from like typing days on end launching this program in my apartment alone because like I owned the program,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, like you get paid to be at work from like 9 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever, and then the rest of the time is yours. And that was just foreign to me. It's like, no, like I have a job and I have to just like do the thing that I said I would do. And you're like, no, like figure out how to do it within business hours.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time is yours. So I'm saying this now and it's like a hard thing to say, but my job owned me.
Mm.
And they never told me the contract, we own you, we own your ass. I just like made it the thing.
Yeah.
I made it the thing, and like my relationship was being compromised, my well-being was being compromised because like I was never setting the boundaries for myself. I didn't realize that there was a boundary to set.
Mm.
And so from there, having conversations with you and implementing the tools, I realized, wait, I have control. If I actually put together a reasonable to-do list and break out when those things are going to happen, that's control. And if I not promise anything until I figure out how much time it's going to take, that's also control. So those are things that I was just like, yes, 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 I can do it, of course. That's crazy
Yeah.
that I had that life.
Yeah. And it's so much
Yeah.
better now. Like you've been able to shift now into your own personal freedom and knowing what it's like to sort of own your day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's big. So going into like this other opportunity, I now know that things have to be different,
Mm-hmm.
that the approach just has to be different. And even up until our last call a couple of days ago, I wasn't in that frame of mind. Like now I have my whiteboard in front of me and I'm like thinking of business ideas. And it was interesting because I had to do like a hiring exercise or a work challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I took out my whiteboard to do it for them. And this was the very first time that I was doing it for myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm thinking back to you being challenged by the client calls, right? So when it came to you really taking the steps to start getting your first like coaching clients and thinking like, all right, you know, I know what value, I know who I want to serve, I know the value I can create for them. But now I have to get more clear, right? Exactly on what they want so that I can make these offers. And so I'm curious about your experience of that exercise and what you felt like beforehand, before you did it, and then sort of after, sort of the
Do you
result.
mean the client interviews?
Yes.
Okay. I don't even know why I was making it a big deal before. Like everything now that was like a big deal before, I'm like, all right, that was fine. Yeah, I can't remember why I was making it a big deal. I think I was like, oh, like who wants to talk? I don't know what I was saying, but the calls were really, really, I don't know, they just like affirmed that I wasn't a crazy person and that the thing that I cared about, other women really cared about it. But then what was even more important is that I had the answer and I was sitting on it.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
I have notebooks and binders of like tools and exercises and just like all these things and like my own experience of going through the process twice and like working with those tools on myself and being in a more balanced place. Like I have so many answers. And for some reason, I've just been sitting on it. And so the calls were so powerful because I was talking to real women, including women who I went to high school with,
yeah.
women who were a part of my circle, and just like didn't know their full stories because I didn't take the time to ask, or I was afraid that I wouldn't have the answer and I wouldn't know how to support and serve them. And it was so affirming to hear their stories, but to also know that I actually had the answer,
Hmm.
you know?
Okay, that's amazing. All
Yeah.
right. So what has happened in terms of your revenue goals? How has that changed since you started the program?
Yeah. I did not have a goal when I started the program. So let's say that I started at zero. And even during one of our calls, when you brought up the revenue goal, I was like, wait, I should be making money from this. So like, I was just in a state. I was just in a state because I was really, just like really was comfortable with my full-time job. And so like still having that, I wasn't even thinking of my business as a business. But I would say that mentally, my revenue goal increased because I signed, I brought on a client for an ongoing coaching program, which I had never
Yeah.
done before, just I had never done before. I usually operate by like offering a free full session.
Mhm.
And then from there asking people, so what do you think? And was never just like making it an offer. Like this is what working with me looks like. And if you need the transformation that you need, this is what, we should commit to. So I did that based on you just like laying out what that looks like. Um, Gave the client a price based on the time that I knew that I would be working with her. Immediately before sending out the quotes to her, was about to reduce the number, and you came into my mind and I was like, nah, there's no way I can show my face on the call and tell Jamila that I did that. So I was like, let me quickly send this email. And the client was like, cool.
You're right.
It's like,
No problem.
and once that happened, I was like, shit, it was too low. So, but I needed to go through that because coming from a baseline of 0, I needed to hit some number.
Yeah.
So now my baseline has increased, and I know that based on what I'm offering her, it needs to be higher for the next client.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And as I'm working with my revenue goals, there has to be like the retraining of my mind, like this much time is equal to this much value.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to see how the numbers work out, because just like putting 10,000s or like whatever thousands on a piece of paper like freaks me out. I'm like, nobody's going to pay that. But once I break out my time is equal X, and it's like a 3-month program, that's like a lot of time, and I care. Like when I put something together, like I care, I give my all. And so it just like helps me to affirm that I have value. What I'm offering has value, and I have value.
Yes, absolutely. I'm curious, what have been your favorite parts of the daily success system? What has been your favorite part to either learn or
Yeah.
implement?
I really love calendar blocking and color coding my calendar based on, so anything having to do with money is like green. So daily success, all of those calls are in green. Like this call is in green. And then there's like another green for my consultations with clients or appointment with clients. Self-care has another color. Well, the hour of power, I don't know why that didn't resonate with me, so I just call it implementation, like take action.
Yeah.
So that's also in green. So breaking out my day in that way helps me to not be unrealistic, because I will like wake up and like make breakfast, and that transitions into lunch, and then that transitions into dinner, and like that's my day.
Right.
But having like set things to do just like helps me to stay accountable to myself. So that is probably one of my favorite tools.
Nice. And what do you think have been your biggest life changes in the program?
Biggest life changes. I think having a community has been a big shift. I'm usually the one who is offering support to others and like being there for my people, my girlfriends. But just before this call, Jessica and I were like brainstorming on stuff to do this month, because this month is pregnancy and infant loss awareness month, which I know because I go to a walk every year in October. And I sometimes like lead stuff at the walk, but I've never thought of doing something for myself. And she was just like, it's this month, like we should do something. And she gave me amazing ideas. So just knowing that I have other people and resources to lean on has been huge. And having you has also been huge, because I just, I know that I cannot fail.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys are like the perfect accountability partners.
Yeah.
Jessica, it's been amazing how you have just connected.
Yeah.
This might have been one of my all-time best matches.
I was like, Jamila knows what she's doing.
Okay, awesome. So where do you feel like you've gotten stuck in the process, and how did you move past it?
Yeah. So it's always a fear. It's always like some negative self-talk or some limitation that I have. And so I'm constantly working through fears. So as I have come closer to finalizing the offer, I need to now put the offer into the world. Other fears are coming up. So I continue to use mantras. So the one that I'm using this week is that fear doesn't get to be in the driver's seat.
Yes.
And it's something that I heard Elizabeth Gilbert talk about. Like, fear gets to come with me, but you can't drive. You have to be in the back seat.
Yeah, right, in the trunk even. I put you in the trunk.
Exactly. So I've been using that. All of my things have just been self-talk, because I have the skills. I know that there's an audience that wants it. So it's all been just like negative self-talk and doubt. But what I've been learning is, and like this is something that was echoed at the big ass conference. Like unless I do it, unless I put it out there, there's no way that I can get feedback that it's good or it needs to change or it needs to shift.
Yeah.
It's just years of like sitting on this thing that I think that I know is really important, but it doesn't get to interact with people and evolve and to, change based on what people are looking for. And then the other thing that I use to encourage myself. So right now I have a picture of my baby sleeping on my desktop, and he's my why,
Oh.
And I'm realizing now, like there's so many things that I was doing while I was working at that organization to create the life that I wanted. So I knew that if I was working in a city that was different from the HQ office, I could work from home.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to work from home because I want to be a mother who stays at home, and I also want to have a career. And so I moved across the country. Just so that I could do that. And now I'm like, oh shit, I could have just started a business right here and control my time, control when I go to work and who I see and what I work on, and like be here with my kid. So that's crazy. So now that he's on my desktop and I'm remembering my why, I have to send this program out and I have to have calls with moms and I just have to do what I need to do.
Yes.
Because that's the life that I want to create for myself.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. That was so good. That's so good. Yeah, because we can create the life that we want, right? Sometimes we just do it in craziness, right? Like we're going to another state, right?
Yes.
To be able
And the
to.
universe was like, that's not the plan, actually.
Yeah, right.
Go back to New York.
Right.
There's a better way to do this where everybody's losing their mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last thing I wanted to mention was the retreat experience. So what was that like?
That was amazing. It was amazing to be with all the women in person. And we see each other's like heads on the screen every week, but just being with everyone in person and knowing their stories, you really felt the community. It felt like we were old friends, but also like powerhouse women who were doing things, so just being there together with that was amazing. And the curriculum that was developed was just like out of this world.
Oh, awesome.
It was amazing. And I felt like I got to this place of clarity, and like that's the first time when I felt like a business owner during the retreat.
Wow, that's amazing.
And the other thing that was powerful is like I was learning that there was actually a formula to everything. Like if you do this, you get that. And like this number is going to be the drop off. So you just need this much more to get to the number that you want. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't have to like guess my way or like feel my way through this thing. There's actually a proven formula that I just need to follow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
What was your favorite activity?
My favorite activity. I loved when I think it was the last day that we did this activity of going through like the roadmap for our business. So like where we saw ourselves in like the next 3 months, like getting the stickies and like getting all the ideas out.
Oh yes, the money roadmap.
Exactly. And being able to focus on like one thing. Cause I was like coaching and YouTube and like this and like Instagram. And then you're just like, we're just doing one.
Cut it out.
We're just doing one.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, now I'm remembering like just the room and, everyone around the table and like coming up with the ideas and the colors of their stickies and just how powerful that was to just like get everything out into the open and claim that was going to be the next 3 months or the next 6 months for our business.
Nice. And what
Yeah.
about your favorite fun activity?
So I was actually going to start with the favorite fun activity, and I was like, wait, I should probably start with the business one. I love the Beyonce dance class. That was so
Oh,
much fun.
have you tried your chair dancing at home yet?
I have.
What are you waiting for, girl?
I haven't.
Shucks, that'll easily, make a next 10 years go real smooth.
Yeah, I actually loved the tour too, the bike tour,
Oh yeah,
because
that
I
was
had
fun.
never, I've ridden bikes a lot, but it's always like in the park or somewhere safe or like on the sidewalk, which I shouldn't be doing anyways. So I've never ridden on the road before, and I just like felt so confident afterwards. Like, "Oh, I can drive. I can ride in traffic."
Yeah. I kept loving the part where he said, "Take the lane." I'm like, "Yes, we're gonna take the lane. It's everything. We got it." All right, awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share or reflect on that we didn't talk about?
Anything else? Yeah. So I love hearing the progress that other women are making in the group. Because I know that we're all going through the struggle. We all have the mind stuff. We all have other things that we're responsible for, whether it's like another job or like a family or like whatever. And we're still making it happen. So I'm always inspired by seeing the progress.
Yes.
Um, and I'm just infinitely grateful to you
Oh, thank
for
you.
not putting up with my bullshit and my excuses. um, because like I've talked myself out of a lot of things. And had it not been for you, I would have talked myself out of other things in the program.
Mm.
So in some cases, I'm like, nah, there's no way I can go to Gemini with that. So like, I'm just thinking about it. And in other cases, you're just like, all right, listen here, girly. This is what needs to happen. And I'm like, all right, okay, I'll make it happen.
So what are you excited about sort of moving forward? What's like really on your heart right now in terms of
Mm-hmm.
your business and your
Mm-hmm.
life?
Yeah. So coming out of the call with well, that's one thing. I was about to say that coming out of the call with Jessica, I am excited about like running this promotion and like finally interacting with women out into the world.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is I know that what I have to offer is so powerful
Yes.
because like I've been working with clients on, like somatic therapy or just like having conversations and I see the shifts. And so I'm just so excited to finally do it. And like, even as I'm saying that, I still feel the fear, but unless I do it, I don't know. So I'm excited to know. Yeah, to see it happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Awesome, Natalee.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
Oh, I'm grateful for you too.
Thank you.